acabei de receber essa ordem da doutora Ingrid. Sem nome ali, 2 minutos que eu vou botar a câmera aqui pendurada. Patrícia Lane, diretora da Rádio Salto TV. Isso. Lane.
Tá.
Ao vivo, para todo o Brasil.
Legal.
Daqui a pouco, quando eu parar aqui no outro, eu vou e libero o link para você.
Mas é o do canal do YouTube, não é?
É. Você já deve ter de ontem.
É, vai ser o mesmo.
Fabiana, você consegue fazer um favor para mim? A chave está na porta. Eu preciso da outra câmera, porque essa não está entrando no cartão. Tem outra câmera lá dentro da malinha. Só pegar a câmera e trazer para mim. Isso. Tranquilo. Pelo amor de Deus. Obrigada. Muito obrigada, irmão. Ó, preciso. Fica por aqui para prestar atenção.
Bem, senhoras e senhores, nosso bom dia mais uma vez, retornando agora do nosso coffee break, teremos a palestra O Caminho da Griaule para a Inovação, e hoje convidar o professor Ciro Jamil, da PUC Minas, que será o moderador desta palestra. Eu convido aqui a diretora da Rede Sempre TV, a nossa querida Patrícia Lane, que tem um recadinho especial, uma salva de palmas para a Patrícia.
Bom dia! Começar um dia com palmas é sem dúvida um privilégio. Mas quem merece as palmas aqui hoje é a Griaule, nossa patrocinadora aqui do evento. Então, palmas! Quero agradecer a vocês, gente. Eu fiz questão aqui de falar, de fazer essa fala, pedir à doutora Ingrid que me permitisse, porque se em todos os eventos a gente tivesse patrocinadores assim tão compromissados quanto os que a gente tem aqui nesse evento, seria a vida mais simples, né, para a gente poder continuar fazendo ciência, levando jornalismo científico aí para todo o Brasil. A Rede Sempre está transmitindo as palestras, gente, diretamente para o YouTube, trazendo aí interação para vocês, interação com o público de vocês. Então divulguem o link previamente. Depois essas palestras vão ser baixadas e reeditadas para poder contemplar as falas mais relevantes do nosso evento. Então, sem dúvida nenhuma, é um privilégio ter vocês aqui conosco, principalmente pela relevância do que vocês entregam, né? Uma empresa que trabalha com segurança em algo que a gente quer tanta segurança, quer tanta transparência, quer tanta nitidez, que são as eleições, tá? Então, com essa fala minha, eu vou devolver o microfone aqui para o meu parceiro, amigo de eventos, para poder anunciar a vocês, mas eu não podia deixar de registrar a importância, a honra que é ter vocês aqui, patrocinando todo o evento, mas principalmente com essa parceria com o ICIT, né? Porque o evento ele é anual, a cada ano ele está num outro lugar, mas a gente sabe que o ICIT vai continuar fomentando ciência, fomentando o jornalismo científico e dando cada vez mais espaço para pessoas que fazem esse trabalho relevante que o André, o João e a Júlia fazem, o nome do senhor Pascoal. Então, muito obrigado, viu, gente? Fica aqui o agradecimento de todo o nosso grupo, tá? Obrigada.
Obrigado, Patrícia, diretor da rede Centro TV, que a partir de agora está transmitindo esse evento para todo mundo, principalmente essa palestra, e convido o professor Silvio Jamil, PUC Minas, para fazer a apresentação. Salve de palmas também ao professor Silvio.
Hello everyone. Everyone speak Portuguese or you can speak English? Or me guys? Yeah, I speak English. So, Civigratas Day this year are partially supported by Griaule. We hope that this partnership will continue the next year, the next maybe 20 years. So it's very, very nice and important for us. Griaule is the largest company in the Americas specialized in biometric recognition and offers technology that guarantees confidence in Brazilian identity cards. Griaule provides technology for example, TSS, Superior Electoral Vote, and FETAG. Now I think this defense of 18 yes. So I'd like to invite you, André, to stay with us. André Nóbrega is a PhD student of Supervision of Professor Alexandre Falcão. So, the word is
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is André. This is my second time here at Griaule, and last year I was here with Griaule as well, but only as a PhD student, and this year I'm pleasure to be here both as a PhD student and as one of the representatives of Griaule, which is very happy to sponsor this very important event. So this talk will be a little bit about how Griaule believes in the research done here in Brazil and how it's assembling a team of researchers and sponsoring a team of researchers to solve really big biometric challenges that pretty much everyone in the world is trying to solve. So we are a Brazilian company and we are trying to solve these really big problems, and what I'm going to do is start by showing what I think is a really cool video about the company. So, I think that you saw a little bit parts of it already, but here's the full version in English. Okay.
We are Griaule, a global provider of integrated biometric technologies for security, efficiency, and inclusion. We provide the biometric solution for Brazil's largest identification system, which verifies voter identities and strengthens democracy with biometric capture in elections, ensuring every citizen exercises their right to vote. Through real-time facial recognition and continuous intelligent monitoring, we help locate missing persons, reconnecting families and their stories. We enable governments to issue identity documents, which are at the root of trust in societal interactions. We modernize bureaucratic processes through automation and innovation, making identity verification more efficient for public services. This way, we uphold the civic rights of over 210 million Brazilians. Our solutions also ensure greater security and justice. We help identify suspects with greater precision, improving the reliability of investigations, and speeding up criminal investigations, even in challenging scenarios. This is how Griaule, a Brazilian company, expanded globally and became one of the fastest growing companies in the Americas, earning the trust of leading international agencies in identity verification, including the United States Department of Defense, which oversees the world's largest military biometric project, including the Superior Electoral Court of Brazil and the Federal Police of Mexico. With more than 4,000 customers in over 70 countries, we are the only biometrics company in the Americas to be awarded and certified by leading institutions, ensuring the highest levels of reliability and efficiency. Our solutions undergo rigorous validation by independent entities. For nearly 25 years, we have been proud to develop solutions that positively impact lives and contribute to a more secure, fair, and democratic world. Griaule, biometric solutions that build trust.
Yeah, what I can say about this video is it was a really fun day at the office when they filmed it. We participated a little bit, and I think it was a nice result. No, not bad. So we are located really close to the Unicamp, and most of our researchers come from there. But that's not all of the case. We have researchers which are PhD students, both in the US and the Germany, and we're always looking for Brazilian talents to participate in the research team. It's very closely related to the academia. And while we all face a lot of challenges, I think that a few of them go through these problems right here, which is by big data biometrics. We handle a lot of data, and that's a problem by itself. We also have proprietary algorithms in pretty much all of the forms of biometrics, and we're always trying to improve them, which is the main goal of the research. But mostly, as we'll see throughout this presentation, we focus on face recognition, fingerprint recognition, and latent fingerprint recognition, which is a form of fingerprint recognition done at crime scenes. One of our biggest cases was the solution, the deliverance of a solution to the Brazilian banks called Santander. And what we did was we provided a solution for the ATM machines. And that's a really important thing. It belongs to our day-to-day lives, but at the time, we were trying to do something called the bathing suit withdrawal, in which you don't use anything to go on the ATM machine and to get your money. You can be in a bathing suit on the beach, go there, use the biometrics, and get your thing. Yeah, it's a really good solution. It's called a verification test in the biometric field. Another really big solution was the Brazilian electoral court, the TSE. To this day, we've done more than 160 million users enrolled. And to enroll a user, you have to perform something called deduplication, in which you search for the database if that user is already in the database. That needs to be done incredibly fast. And this helps present yeah, we don't really do the electoral verification process. We only do the enrollment process when you go to get your electoral card. I don't know how to say it in Portuguese. And this really allows for cooperations with all of these states and Brazilian polices throughout the Brazil, because it allows us to have a unified database of biometrics in Brazil, and just as we'll see a little bit later, it helped us solve a few crimes in the country. Another really important project was the US Department of Defense. And if you think about it, that's a really impressive thing. You have a Brazilian technological company providing security solution to one of the biggest countries concerned about security in the world, which is the American country, right? This was done through an outside partner. It was a third-party company that hired Griaule to perform these solutions for fingerprint identification in Afghanistan. We've done latent fingerprint identification in parts of bombs left at the Afghanistan for a while. That project was discontinued because, from what I heard, the Americans had to leave the country due to geopolitical situation. And here we have probably a few cases in which this Griaule technology helped to solve real crimes here in Brazil and impact the society with research done like 2 feet away from Unicum. One of our forensics experts, they went to Rio de Janeiro and to do like a demonstration of one of our products there for the police there. And at the time, she was doing the presentation, and at the end she asked if they had any case in which they would like some help. And at the time, there was pressure from the Rio governor about this mug at a jury's court in the state. So they thought, let's write the fingerprints that we have on this mug. And they ran through the Griaule identification system just to see if it worked. And it was the rank 1 suspect given by the system was in fact the criminal. So that was a fun thing to see, that the research that we did actually got someone arrested. Another case was also for fingerprint identification. You can see that it really happened here in Brazil because there's a very typical dog running around in the video. This was a kidnapping at a helicopter, also in Rio de Janeiro, if I'm not mistaken. And the helicopter pilot, he was, I believe it was a former military, and he had a lot of training. And the perpetrators, they wanted to go to this prison to get another criminal friends of theirs, I think. And the pilot wouldn't take it. So he started doing these really crazy maneuvers in a police station to try to alert them, and I think he was ready to die for it. He wouldn't want to recuperate these other prisoners. And the criminals, they were all in masks and they had gloves and stuff like that. But somehow they left a few fingerprints on the helicopters. And that was a case in which they also performed this latent fingerprint search, and they found the criminals, and I think they were arrested as well. This is another case in which this Griaule technology helped society in a very impactful way. Another case, and this is an interesting one, was the case of this lawyer called Alexander Martins. He was being searched for, I don't know the term in English, but I think it's content feeding or something like that. He was fooling people, and he was going to be arrested by police because of that. And he decided to forge his own death. So apparently, to confirm that a person is dead, you only needed a few witnesses here in Brazil. So he asked his mother and his wife to say that he was dead, and apparently that was all it took. And once he was dead, he figured out that it's really hard to live in Brazil without a social security number. So he found a boy that lived in a same city of his, and that was born in the same year of him, but he unfortunately died at 10 years old in a car accident. And he got his birth certificate, which is also public. Everyone can take anybody's birth certificate if they ask for it. And he assumed that boy's identity for like more than 2 decades. So he saw that it was a little bit lucrative because he could ask for benefits from the Brazilian government. And he started doing that over and over again. He would find someone, take his identity, and started applying for benefits like pensions and stuff like that. He robbed over 4 million reais from Brazil's government, and he did that for 17 years. And he was only caught when the databases were unified, and he tried to enroll another fingerprint, and they say, wait a minute, he's already enrolled. So that's when the police started to really search for him. That's one of the great benefits of having such a unified fingerprint database. Another few examples in which this fingerprint recognition technology must work really fast is when an accident happens and you don't really have a great way of identifying the bodies. And that's important not only for the family of victims, but also for things like organ donating. Because when you can identify the victim really fast, you can probably see if she would like her organs donated. And you can impact the society like that. We also use the Griaule technology to identify victims of the Petropolis accident that happened, I think a few years ago. Another case similar to this one was a bus that fell and left 11 people dead, unfortunately. And they were from all over Brazil, so they were from different states, and using the technology, we could identify them really quickly because of this access to this very, very large fingerprint database. It's the largest fingerprint database in the world. No, one of the largest. If I'm not mistaken, we only lose to India, which has like 1 million people there. So you're behind. But 160 million, that's really a lot, and gives a lot of opportunities for researchers to do all sorts of things. So, talking a little bit more about the Griaule research in itself. Yeah, currently what we do is we have a cooperation, a partnership with UNICAM, which is where I started. And we have cooperations with 2 professors there. One of them is here, you guys probably know him, which is Professor Alexandre. Myself, I'm a PhD student, but I started with my master's course a few years ago. And we have PhD students, we have master's students, and we have undergraduate students all working both at UNICAM and at Griaule. So they have this opportunity to both study, go through the formal education of academia, and also collaborate already in a company that's trying to do technology. Yeah, we don't have everyone's face here, but the team's a little bit bigger than that. And this yielded some results, both for the company in itself by advancing its technology, as we'll see a little bit later, but also for the students, right? we published in Griaule last year, and it actually took the best paper award on this work, which was improving local latent fingerprint representations under the data constraints. Really didn't thought that was going to happen, but somehow it did. So we were really happy about it. Yeah, another paper was this extension to the important pattern recognition letters, which is a self-supervised contrastive learning approach for latent fingerprint identification. And in this Griaule this year, we also sent 2 papers, and they were both accepted, both in the context of fingerprints. And when I'm going to talk a little bit about the research itself, the technical part, I'm going to discuss it a little bit. But one is for latent fingerprint enhancement, that is mirroring the ridges as much as possible, and the other one was to solve a really big problem, which is the search time. Because if you have 160 million people enrolled, you have like 1.6 billion fingers to search in a latent and criminal scenario. So it's a big challenge. Yeah. So our biggest challenge right now, and that's why the team first came together. That's why Griaule really started to invest in research, was for latent fingerprint identification, which is a really cool thing, if you ask me. Which is basically identifying very poor quality fingerprints. One of our main goals is to get in as high as possible on one of the most well-known and prestigious latent fingerprint competitions in the world. You have, I think there are only 2 companies in Brazil that is currently ranked in there. And in 2021, we didn't, Griaule hadn't started yet this investment in students and stuff like that. So we were at 58% identification rate at round 1. That is, at 58% of the times, we were able to find the correct criminal using this system. So throughout the years, that was improving, and we were hoping to get to 90 to the end of this year. This means that 90% of the searches in a really challenging scenario, we can find the correct criminal in the first try. In a real scenario, that's not how it happens. Sometimes you can give the police like 10, 20, 30 suspects, and they can eliminate a lot of suspects using metadata like where they're from, their age, and stuff like that. Latent fingerprint identification, like I told you, it's identifying the fingerprints at fractions, and they can get really degraded. This is one of the most famous databases, which is used in similar databases used in that competition. And as you can see here, you can barely see the fingerprints, right? When you compare it to typical reference fingerprints, which are the fingerprints caught with user cooperation, you have a lot of different kinds of backgrounds and different kinds of noises that make the task way harder. And that's what we're dealing with. So an automated latent fingerprint identification or automated fingerprint identification system consists of extracting some features about the fingerprint, extracting features on the reference database fingerprint, which is in Brazil here the electoral court system, for instance, and then doing some kind of matching between those features, comparing those features to see how well how much they look like, and you give a similar score to it, as you can see here. So you can think of a similar score as a value between 0 and 1 that reflects how much the fingerprints are similar amongst themselves. So here we have, like, the first candidate is shown red, and we had like 98% of belief that that was the correct match. And the current approach, the classical approach for fingerprint representation was seeing those points called minutiae that you can see the naked eye if you have a good vision, which is the points in which the ridges they bifurcate or they end abruptly. And these points they are represented as with their geometrical characteristics, just like their position, the x and y, and an angle of the direction of the fingerprint ridge. So these minutiae were classically represented as this set of points that have 3 characteristics. And the first thing that we did on this research that started a few years ago was to improve it a little bit. So why not look at the visual characteristics of these points as well, not just their topological properties. What we did was we proposed a pipeline to train a network to extract patches from these minutiae points and train a network to capture the visual pattern around it. So not only we had these topological characteristics, we also had these embeddings that somehow captured the texture pattern centered at these minutiae points. And what we did was we proposed a new algorithm, a new graph match algorithm to embed these extra embeddings on the comparisons between 2 minutiae graphs, because they're represented as a graph. Each minutiae point is a vertex on the graph, and the similarities between minutiae are the edges on this graph. That was the really big first idea that came in this research that got us these extra like 10 or 15% identification rate in the competitions in Brazil. So we're basically looking at that. The algorithm consists of comparing these minutiae points and finding an optimal matching correspondence according to some measure. And what we do is we also look at these visual patterns, as we can see here. What we're seeing here is a few patches coming from the query, which is the latent fingerprint on the left. They are already enhanced. And we are looking at a few patches of minutiae on the reference fingerprints and how well they match between themselves. Of course, this network is not perfect. It doesn't give a score of 1 when it's the correct match and 0 when it's the imposter. We're actually having a confidence interval of how well 2 patches match with themselves. But it was a really important idea to get us better rankings. When we're looking at the future for new researchers, and what we're doing as well here, are these current research questions. The first one is, yes, we have a lot of data in Brazil, but we can't really use it. This electron current database is not really available for research. So fingerprint databases are actually very limited, especially the latent fingerprint databases. And not only the data itself is limited, but also data labeling is limited. For every fingerprint-related task, if you're going to do supervised learning, you need to have labeling. And labeling fingerprints is not an exactly easy task. A normal person can't really do it. I myself that studied it for 3 or 4 years. I can't really label fingerprints in a lot of tasks. So you need a forensic expert, and that costs money, a lot of money. So one of the main research questions on this area throughout the world is how can we generate reliable synthetic data for fingerprint-related tasks. This is an example here of how we are turning an original fingerprint into a synthetic latent, and it was a theme of our paper this year, in which we used something like that to train a network that does the reverse. It takes a latent fingerprint and outputs a clean version of the fingerprint. you think about this arrow going the other way around, right? But it was a really simple work. We didn't really explore in deepness how you can generate a reliable synthetic fingerprint data set that has not only the latent, but also the labeling of this data. Another really cool idea that I think it's going to come up in the latent fingerprint area is, when you think about it, in the fingerprint, a classical fingerprint representation, it's really similar to the field of point pattern matching. What you have is a collection of points, which is encoded here as a position, P, A, and PI, P. And you have a set of embeddings that capture the visual patterns of those points in D, A, and D, B. And you are trying to solve a problem in which you want to find a correspondence between points that have some geometrical or topological sense, but also have some visual sense. It's like you're trying to solve a puzzle, and you're getting a lot of pieces, and you're seeing if they look alike, and if they have the correct geometry for the thing. You need to have both things. And what we do today in fingerprint is solving a problem, and then solving the other problem. And these things don't really measure themselves. A lot of the recent papers, they all have this limitation. We can't really solve this problem jointly to this day. You want to have a topological cooperation between these points, and you want to have a visual cooperation between these points. And that's what is shown here in a paper. It's a really popular paper called Superglue. And they're trying to figure out this idea for the sense of point pattern matching. And the question here is, can these transformers networks capture this local fingerprint texture and minutia topology jointly? So, if you think about it, it's a natural thing to assume, because what transformers do is they take these visual embeddings of patches within the images, and they compute geometrical relationships between those patches, which is really, really natural for fingerprint. So what we are trying to figure out is if we can put this idea into minutia embedding extraction. We're trying to do the extraction of those patches and the visual embedding of those patches, but we're also trying to establish these minutia topological correspondences all in the network, right? So this is a really cool idea that I'm not really sure that I should be talking about here, because we're trying to I don't know, develop, and here we have some great researchers that can probably cooperate in this team. Another important idea was the one also published this year at Griaule, which is how can we perform a fast research efficiency search in large-scale automated fingerprint identification systems. And this paper was really, really interesting, because pretty much everyone in the latent fingerprint identification, they don't do something that is called the vector identification search. What they do when they are trying to speed up the latent fingerprint search is to extract a global embedding of the fingerprint image, and then try to do those matches between global embeddings. It's really fast, but no one ever used very well-known indexing methods to compare two fingerprint embeddings and reduce this spacing search really a lot. And what we showed in this year is that we can do that agnostically to the method in which we are using to represent this fingerprint. So you can do it with any kind of fingerprint representation. We've showed that we can reduce this space of search in orders of magnitude, taking a fingerprint search that would take, I don't know, days to seconds. Yeah, it's a current research question that we're trying to implement here in Brazil. and you don't really see a lot of papers about it, and it's a really important one that we're currently working on. So yeah, that's the main things that I wanted to show you today, and also something is that Griaule is always looking for students, good students, to do their scientific initiation and do their masters and their PhD, all working with Griaule scholarships. And I don't know, maybe working on the research team as well. So if you have any interest in, if you're thinking about doing your master's, your PhD, you can do it at UNICAM. But I don't know, I think you can probably do it at your university, and you can do a partnership with their universities. So if you want to work in this biometric research field, I think it's a really good opportunity. For myself, it was, and it's been, right? So thank you everyone for your attention. It's a pleasure to be here representing Griaule. Thank you.
Very nice one. Congratulations. We'll have time for some questions. David?
I have one, but you after.
No, right now. Please.
Well,
regarding this large data set, I guess this data came from the public departments, okay, from the TSI. Do you have authorization from the people to have this large data set in the company?
We don't.
It's a question related with LGBT in Brazil that it forbids some kind of research in this sense. So I would like to know how to.
Yeah, we don't have authorization and we don't do research on it. Actually, I don't have access to this thing. What Griaule does is we do the enrollment on the electoral card or electoral system. We don't do the process of we don't do the verification on the day of the elections, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really know this, but I do know that we don't have access to this database. We don't do any training on that. I've never, we can't really do that. Yeah, it was something that I discussed last night, as I also had this doubt.
Thank you.
No question.
I think that the maximum thing that we can do is something that the TSE allows, is to try new things on this database, but it's something that they do on their premises. We can't really, this data doesn't leave the TSE to go to Griaule.
Question?
Hi, good morning. I would like to know how you balance the process, because when we improve the process for recognition through all you explained today, we also have another challenge with ethical things and some about ethical questions, you know?
Sorry, I really didn't understand it. Can you repeat?
I will try to explain my question. I would like to know how we can balance the ethical things, you know, when we improve the technology to recognition through biometric information.
That's a really good question, and especially in this work done this year. I worked on, let me go back a little bit. I've worked on latent fingerprint enhancement, latent and reference fingerprint enhancement. That is when you're trying to remove these artifacts from the images. And you don't really have a lot of control of these networks. So what you can end up doing is inventing something that is not in the image. And fingerprints, they're all different, but they're very similar to each other as well. So really small changes in the fingerprint ridge patterns can lead to a different person. So how can you do an enhancement that invents something that is not there and lead to the different person? That's a really big ethical question. And I think that the most important thing that you can do is to think that these criminal searches, they're not definitive. It's not because we found somebody at rank 1 that this person is going to be arrested. What we have here is a system that helps the forensic experts to do the researches. You can't really ask a forensic expert to search like 1 billion figures. That's simply not going to happen. So you need to reduce it, but you can't really trust only this system because you have a lot of networks acting on it. In pretty much every part of the pipeline, you have a network that was trained on data, and it's a little bit of a black box. We don't know exactly what it's doing. We don't know how to control it to perfection. So it's not exactly explainable. What we can do is give a list for a forensic expert so that they can do the decision.
More questions?
You mentioned before that you are searching for talented students, and we know that some students are really interested in this kind of contribution to the society as we have developed very interesting projects. So maybe you could pitch your work on elections and on identification of situations. So maybe if you detail some of these approaches, our students will be very, very interested in contacting you for the open positions.
Sorry, you want to pitch my work?
Yeah, to pitch the projects because the projects are very impactful for the society.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Just like I said at the beginning of this talk, this is a field with a lot of impact on society, right? This is used all throughout Brazil. We are one of the only companies that works in Brazil doing this. Our competitors are from all parts of the globe. They come from Germany, China, US. So I believe it's really important to have a Brazilian company doing these kinds of things. And yeah, there is this impact, but on the research team, we're all in a little room solving the research problems, which is typically what you do at a university without cooperation with a company. So my work exactly was, I've worked in my master's degree was working on these contrasted learning for extracting visual representations of these minutia patches. That's something that we do in the university, and I have this opportunity to do it in a company, and you have a lot of benefits from it. You have a lot of investment that you typically don't have from a normal master's or PhD student in Brazil. So if you want to do these masters, if you want to do a PhD, you can come in contact with through the Griaule website, but the two professors that we have in working in partnership with this problem, with this work, is Alexandre Falcão, which is here at CBGAP, and I can speak on his behalf, but he's probably going to take you in as a master or a PhD student if you want to work on this problem. And Professor Anderson Rocha from Unicamp also has a partnership on this project with Griaule, doing face identification and spoofing and stuff like that. So yeah, the company is always looking for students. They find it hard to find these really passionate and hardworking students. So our team is really that big, but it's always open to new people. And I think it's not limited to Unicamp. We all only have this partnership with Unicamp because Griaule is located like 2 streets from Unicamp, and it was kind of bored there. But I don't think it's limited to this university. You probably get partnership with other universities as well, and doing research all throughout Brazil. As I said, we have researchers in the research team working in the US and on the Germany. To be fair, they were Unicamp students before, but they're no longer. Right?
I see. I'll elaborate a little bit more. My question is that your work is making the society better, right? Because you're working, companies working with elections, to make better elections, better results, more reliable. So this is very motivating for the students looking for a working position. So maybe you could tell them that they're making the society better, right?
Yeah. For instance, in latent fingerprint identification, we saw a really big boom in the quality of the system. As I finished my master's degree, it was fully on this latent fingerprint identification, and this idea, it's widely known today in the fingerprint area, but we had it in Griaule. And as I developed it throughout my master's, I saw a really big improvement on the federal police, and I got that feedback from police agents that the system was really better, really becoming much better. Because as you can see here, we jumped from like 58% identification at front 1 to a little bit over 80% today. So that's a practical impact on the lives of the people that are using.
What's the others possibilities in communication projects?
Other possibilities
Yes.
for what? Sorry.
The implementation project. Yes. Other cases, you can use this same technology, for example.
The research team mainly works today on this latent fingerprint identification, which is the hardest problem related to fingerprint. When you have this typical fingerprint presentation, the main problems today are getting it to be really, really fast because, believe it or not, even though we have problems with our cell phones, it's getting it to work. From the research point of view, it's not that hard of a task to do the typical fingerprint identification. So the main problem that we have today in the research team is making it go really, really fast, because when you're doing the enrollment process of someone getting their identity card, you have to compare the input fingerprint with everyone in the database to make sure that you're not getting a case like that lawyer that tried to fool everyone. You can't really have 2 fingerprints that are the same, from different identities. The main problem today is getting it to be really, really, really fast. I think these are the main fingerprint problems that we have today.
So now we have a gift for you. Angel, please come here for the gifts. Many thanks for the stock. Congratulations.
Muito bem. Senhoras e senhores, é com imensa e grande entusiasmo que as comissões organizadoras e científicas destes 3 eventos, SBR 2025, SP Games e CIVICAP, têm o prazer de destacar e homenagear a empresa Griaule, uma força motriz no universo do desenvolvimento de software em todo o mundo. Neste palco vibrante dos nossos eventos, celebramos a visão, a inovação e o impacto que a Griaule tem gerado em nossas comunidades. A homenagem que será feita agora pelo patrocínio e apoio da Griaule, cuja liderança e expertise tem impulsionado a empresa a patamares de excelência. Eu convido aqui os representantes, demais representantes da empresa, para se juntar aqui ao nosso querido palestrante, professor André Nóbrega, para que possam ser homenageados aqui em nome da empresa, por gentileza. E é com muita satisfação que nós convidamos a nossa coordenadora geral, professora Ingrid, para prestar essa singela homenagem.
Obrigada. Nossas 3 comunidades estão assim, muito agradecidas pelo patrocínio de vocês. É muito importante, viabilizam esses eventos. Então, todas as conquistas dos eventos das comunidades devem ser os patrocinadores do Griaule, que acreditam no trabalho do evento, nos permitem comunicar nossos resultados, nos reunirmos e trocarmos conhecimentos também com companhias como vocês. Para nossas comunidades é muito importante. Então, a gente tem essa singela homenagem para entregar. Obrigada.
Pega esse microfone que está aí atrás para mim.
Pessoal, tudo bem? Eu sou a Júlia, eu trabalho no marketing da Griaule, acho que provavelmente não é a área que vocês imaginam trabalhar. É a minha primeira vez no CityGraph e eu estou muito feliz que a gente patrocinou esse evento. E eu queria trazer para vocês a minha ideia, assim, pode ser uma ideia vermelha aí para o pessoal de pesquisa, mas o que eu acho que a empresa está contribuindo hoje em dia, que eu achei muito bacana. Então, foi minha primeira vez em Salvador e também foi minha primeira vez que eu consegui ver o produto da Griaule em ação. Então, ontem eu tive a chance de ir no Instituto de Identificação Pedro Bela, aqui em Salvador, e que eu consegui ver melhor o impacto que a gente está trazendo socialmente, assim, e que eu acho que muitos de vocês poderiam contribuir com a gente, se inscrever nas nossas vagas, que a gente dá um apoio muito legal aí para estudantes que a gente enxerga um potencial, assim, para estar ajudando. Então, a gente atualmente, para dar uma explicação melhor, assim, sobre as áreas que a gente está atuando, né? A gente atua na área de eleição, emissão de identidade e também na área de investigação criminal. Só que eu acho que quando a gente fala isso fica um pouco confuso. Então, para explicar melhor, na parte de eleição, a gente fornece um sistema para o e-título. Então, atualmente, a gente está fornecendo liveness. Quando a gente abre o aplicativo e reconhece a face, tudo isso é fornecido pela Griaule. E esse sistema ele tem uma base de dados que engloba o Brasil inteiro. E a gente está fornecendo todo esse sistema. Então, a eleição, a gente não está atuando diretamente no dia da eleição, mas a gente está atuando na segurança dessa eleição. Então, é uma coisa mais por trás, assim. E na questão da emissão de identidade, dos postos, que agora está com uma nova carteira de identidade, assim, a Griaule faz o sistema, que é o sistema do cadastramento. Então, ontem eu tive a chance de ir nos postos, de ver o sistema em ação, e é muito bacana, assim, ver como o trabalho deles, dos pesquisadores, de todo mundo que está envolvido, acaba impactando. E um lado um pouco mais difícil de ver, que eu tive a chance, eu também comentei com a Ingrid, é o lado da investigação criminal e também do IML, que eles acabam utilizando para reconhecimento, né, de pessoas desaparecidas, de corpos. Então, esse é um impacto assim, mais forte que a gente tem nas famílias. Então, a gente entrega, assim, na verdade, dignidade para aquelas pessoas que não conseguiram ser reconhecidas antes. A gente tem vários projetos aí rolando no Instituto, que muitas pessoas que às vezes até foram enterradas sem identidade, eles estão conseguindo hoje com o sistema da Griaule dar a identidade dessa pessoa. Então, é muito gratificante para a gente ver isso em ação, igual eu tive a chance de ver ontem. E também ouvir das famílias e das pessoas que estão envolvidas nessas histórias, como elas ficam gratas, assim, de ver como a gente está ajudando. Então, é um trabalho muito humano, além dessa parte também técnica, a gente tem esse impacto social que é muito grande. Então, é muito prazeroso, assim, a gente trabalhar e a gente ver o nosso trabalho em ação, que foi a chance que eu tive ontem de ver. E seria muito importante para a gente, todos vocês que estão assistindo, e que a gente enxergue grande potencial. Quando houver alguma vaga, que vão abrir muitas agora em diante, se inscrevessem, que a gente com certeza vai dar uma atenção especial para todo mundo que está aqui. Obrigada.
Nós que agradecemos agora como sociedade também, né? Não só como um evento, mas como sociedade mesmo, imaginando entregar dignidade aos famílias, muito importante. Então, obrigada, a gente já...
Vamos agora para o intervalo, retornaremos às 14 horas. Uma foto aqui, bacana. Obrigado pela presença de todos. Bons.
Foi só o clima mesmo, eu precisava de um banho, sabe? Um chazinho. Deitei. Senão deixa varrer. E eu não tô fazendo.
Só que eu faço essa live aqui. Como isso é uma live? Eu vou ficar aqui até 6 horas hoje. De novo, velho. Não para não. Só, quer dizer, vai parar hoje, teoricamente. Tipo, não tem ninguém assistindo agora. Vai ficar com você. Tchau, tchau. Acho que é aqui. Essa coisa do X,
Acho que é no X mesmo, viu, André? Aperta aí pra ver da colega.